So we've seen a rise in companies developing virtual training simulation solutions across a wide array of industries. So today I want to share with you three key features and thoughts around what a quality virtual simulation system should have. And my primary work and focus are on military and law enforcement simulations. However, these features would hold true to any industry developing training simulators. So most all virtual simulation systems are not designed to replace your existing training program, but serve as an enhancement to the quality of training and engagement. And what we see with virtual simulators is an increased perceived training importance due to varying levels of immersion, because that's the key to optimizing training performance. The value that the trainee perceives in the program exponentially increases the commitment to perform their tasks. And the benefit of training within a simulation that replicates the reality of their area of operation lessens the gap in the time it takes to transfer critical skills. But not all sim solutions are created equal. So I want to share 3 points of thought when exploring a virtual simulation system for your team, your agency, or organization. So first and foremost, the framework. What hardware makes sense to integrate into your existing training program? The system should offer its solution within the habitable zone of its intended training purpose. So let me explain. So depending on your industry, location, environment, training objectives, choosing the hardware lays the foundation for your team's experience. And that's really the theme of this presentation, optimizing your team's training experience. And it's been documented since the 90s on virtual simulations. And there's a study out of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and the University of Maryland from 1992 and 1995 that quantifies the correlation between training in a virtual simulated environment and the engagement with the training experience. So the greater the immersion, which the sensory channels, the greater the presence, which is the experience, how real does it feel? The greater the presence, the more engaged the trainee becomes. The more engaged the trainee becomes, there is a higher level of commitment to learning with the hope of knowledge retention and ultimately real world application. So the question then becomes, what level of immersion do you need to achieve your training goals? Because there comes a point of diminishing returns and the induction of negative training scars. Neurons that fire together wire together. So if you're practicing, let's say, marksmanship fundamentals with a physical rifle in virtual reality, you may be training your body to become dependent on virtual sights that are misaligned from the physical ones. It might make more sense to physically handle weapons in a projection-based system or utilize optics with an intelligent tutoring system, then create a disconnect with physical weapons and virtual sights, specifically for marksmanship skills training. Now, de-escalation scenarios may be better within a VR experience, since we can experience immersive conversations or work through hostile encounters in various virtual locations. So if you do go down the more immersive route, remember, we're looking primarily at experience and engagement. And the research constantly validates the use of VR in training environments. And many papers have been published. But in 2015, the Journal of Educational Psychology released a study called The Influence of Virtual Reality Training on Learning Outcomes in Different Task Domains. And the conclusion to this study was that virtual reality training is more effective in skills development than traditional methods. And I've stated before in Analogous that there is translation to projection and augmented reality. A simulation is simply the replication of reality, and your training program should dictate what level of simulated reality is required before you hit that level of diminished return, right? You want to be within that habitable zone. Not all training evolutions require VR with full high fidelity. To hit your level of engagement, does your system require visual, audio, and physical movement? What about conversational sessions or training tools? And do the training tools realistically represent the fit, form, and function of the objects in your field? For example, there are amazing projection-based firearm training simulator companies that have developed wireless Bluetooth training weapons that mimic the cycles of operation using compressed air. Um, you have the design, you have the weight, you have the recoil. It's not tethered. You have the functionality, and inside the simulated software are programs that apply virtual ballistic tables based on caliber that incorporate target distances and the weather elements like wind and rain and a multitude of other variables that simulate reality. So a key feature of a quality simulation system, number one, is does the hardware match the level of engagement required? Because there is such a thing as too immersive, and hitting that point of diminished return will inevitably cause negative training scars. Next is customization. And now a lot of these companies have off-the-shelf hardware and off-the-shelf software solutions with pre-existing training scenarios, which is great because there's a lot of commonalities in industry niches. However, is there scalability with the ability to customize scenarios? And with our theme of perceived value and engagement in commitment to training, having the ability to customize training scenarios can really pinpoint your learning objectives in a simulated environment. You identify specific problems, you come up with solutions, you develop SOPs, operating procedures, and training standards and objectives based on those SOPs. But there's a dependency on your location, your environment, diverse cultures, and that impacts what problems you and your organization may encounter. So having the ability to either author your own scenarios within the system or at a minimum work with the solution provider to gain those customized scenarios. I prefer the ability to create my own scenarios in some sort of God mode editing tool within the program as an instructor, but the availability of customization is ultimately what you should be looking for. So key feature number two for a quality simulation system is there the ability to customize scenarios? So lastly, I want to point out the validation of training. Ultimately, we want the transfer of critical skills to real world application. So how is that being measured? How is that being quantified by a hope and a prayer? Or just a check in the box for annual training. But many great simulators have amazing learning management systems embedded within the software, from course material to pre-tests to individual training modules and maybe a collaborative scenario with multiple participants, an after-action review, a post-test, maybe even a self-assessment. And some have data-driven insights that are extrapolated to charts, infographics, reports that can be saved, time-stamped, and associated to a user profile for tracking individual progress. So a system's ease of use and accessibility for recurring training and remedial training paired with a learning management system will aid in measuring individual performance and progression. A company called CRLT offers, in my opinion, the best 3D virtual tabletop crisis response and management training simulation. And they have what is known as event triggers and data hooks. You make a decision within the simulated scenario, it links that back to the learning management system and says, hey, what did the trainee do right or wrong, and presents questions to the trainee within one of the post tests affiliated to those triggered decisions made during the live scenario. It also timestamps the recording of that event. So during the replay, in the after action, a discussion can ensue around decisions made during the event with references generating best practices. And, these types of learning management systems on top of the simulation itself really close the gap and shortens the knowledge retention and transfer times. So feature number three of a quality simulation system is a way to track individual performance and analyze progression. So to wrap things up, does the hardware make sense and match the level of engagement required? Is there the ability to customize scenarios and a way to track performance and analyze progression? Thanks for watching.